Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Isaac Galu. Today we'll be taking a deep dive into the topic of anxiety and anxiety disorders. In the next few minutes, we'll explore how we need to understand anxiety in light of societal perceptions and individual experiences. We'll also discuss the concept of worrying about worry and uncover how we've been misled in this process. It's important to recognize that emotions, especially anxiety, are a natural process. Anxiety is our protective mechanism, keeping us prepared for life's challenges. However, when we become overly concerned about our anxiety, it can make us feel like we're fighting against ourselves. Let's explore how we can shift our perspective and adopt a healthier approach to this emotion. Anxiety, the spread of trouble. In Anatolia, there is a term, carefree person. Some women say when talking about their husbands, he's such a carefree man. A carefree person is closer to being irresponsible. However, anxiety prepares us and motivates us. A person who is anxious about debt wants to pay it off as soon as possible. A carefree person neglects. Someone who treats the university entrance exam as if it were a chemistry test in the second year of high school will pay the price of their carefreeness by studying more. Alas, people expect the same level of anxiety in someone taking the university entrance exam as they had in the high school chemistry exam. When this is not possible, they label it as an anxiety disorder and send the person to psychologists. However, our brains have adjusted the level of anxiety according to the significance of the situation at hand. Since this is not understood, people are taught to be anxious about being anxious. The problem is not anxiety. The problem is being anxious about our anxiety because we fail to recognize it correctly. A child who views anxiety as an obstacle to success learns to be anxious about being anxious. You are too anxious. Don't worry. Overcome your anxiety. There's nothing to worry about. You have anxiety. What you're experiencing is an anxiety disorder. And so on. People are taught to be anxious about their anxiety. The brain produces anxiety to prepare us. By misinterpreting this anxiety, we produce anxiety about our anxiety. What truly affects us is not the anxiety itself, but the anxiety we create about anxiety. The first is natural. The second is artificial. Therefore, the anxiety that needs treatment is not our friendly, natural anxiety, but the faulty perceptions and programming that make us anxious about anxiety. As the Sifter calls it, our anxiety is not broken, but our perception of anxiety and emotions is broken. Panic attacks are essentially fear. Therefore, the problem called panic disorder could also be referred to as a fear disorder. However, the issue here is a distorted perception of fear. Anxiety or anxiety disorder is not the problem. It is a distorted perception of anxiety. In both cases, it is not the phenomenon that is broken, but our perception of the phenomenon. The first means the rain wets you. The second refers to the umbrella factor. The first makes us fight against the rain and the weather. In the second, we take an umbrella in hand and feel comfortable. Because we don't get wet because of the rain, but because we don't use an umbrella. Look how we've been manipulated. We've been thrown into a battle with something external that we can never fully control, not with our perception. The problem is not the umbrella, it's the rain. That's why people are now always anxious, constantly thinking, is it going to rain? Is the weather bad? Will it rain a lot? They've become overly sensitive to the weather, clouds, rain, and even the possibility of rain. If people had seen the issue as the umbrella problem, they would have taken their umbrella and enjoyed walking in the rain.
If a person links getting wet to the rain, they won't just be anxious about the rain. Over time, they will become disturbed by the clouds, the slight closing of the sky, or even the possibility of rain. This is what they want. We are taught to be anxious about being anxious and to generalize this anxiety to everything. We have learned that anxiety prepares us. Okay, teacher, anxiety is normal, we get it, but it affects us a lot, you might say. Let's think about it. Is it our anxiety affecting us or our perception of anxiety? Is it our anxiety affecting us or is it our anxiety about anxiety? The first is human, the second is learned. If a stove burns us, is it the fire in the stove that burns us or is it the act of waiting by the stove? Can you not burn your own hands by being scared of the fire in the stove, waiting by it because of your anxiety? If our anxiety affects us, why doesn't it affect others the same way? Wasn't it supposed to be our anxiety that was the issue? Of course, every anxiety affects us a bit, because anxiety, by its nature, causes discomfort. Isn't it natural for chili peppers to be hot? But the perception of heat determines the experience. For someone from Orpha, the hottest chili might taste like sweet chili. Could the problem be your perception of anxiety? Even if anxiety affects you, do we have to get rid of everything that affects us? Isn't this perspective the reason we're fueling our anxiety without realizing it? Is it abnormal to be affected by something? Old age, pregnancy, and menopause all affect us. Do we immediately get rid of them? Do we fight with old age, pregnancy, or menopause? Is the only way to stop being affected to get rid of it? Is the only way to win to fight? Haven't many wars been won at the negotiation table rather than on the battlefield? Hate and intense longing both affect us. Why don't we call them hate disorders or longing diseases? Why don't we try to treat hate or longing in clinics? No emotion is pathological. The intensity and duration don't change this truth. When the intensity of an emotion increases, its meter doesn't change. Just like when the severity of a flu increases, it doesn't change into cancer. Setting measures, defining, and categorizing emotions is one of the most important techniques for creating problems. If you define a situation as sadness, sorrow, or grief, it becomes an emotion and humanized. If you call it depression, it becomes clinical, medicalized, and turns into a disease. If you categorize the lesser part of an emotion as normal and the greater part as a disorder, you end up being affected even by the lesser part of that emotion, becoming hypersensitive to it, and eventually searching for a clinical diagnosis for yourself. Those in the industry have set measures for emotions and thoughts. By doing so, they have made the public overly sensitive to their emotions and thoughts. Anxiety, by its nature, is anxiety, and chili peppers, by their nature, are hot. But today, people are affected by their anxiety much more than before. No one wants to feel anxious for even 2 days. People's tolerance for emotions like anxiety and fear has drastically decreased, or rather, it has been decreased. This was the goal. The reason for this is the coding by the industry. People believe they are experiencing not only anxiety, but also a disorder, even a disease. Which brain, which subconscious, isn't affected by the idea of illness? When we perceive anxiety as an emotion, it affects us by 2 units. However, when we experience it while believing it is a disorder or illness, it affects us by 5 units. The extra 3 units are gifts from the industry. Today, we talked about how anxiety and its misinterpretation can deeply affect us. Anxiety, by nature, is a protective element, but when it's misrepresented with the wrong concepts, it can lead us into an even more tangled situation. What we discovered in this video is that seeing anxiety as an enemy is really sabotaging ourselves. Yes, anxiety is an emotion, and like every emotion, it serves a purpose. Instead of trying to fight anxiety, we should focus on understanding the message it's trying to convey. Stop worrying about worrying, respect it, and focus on how it's preparing us for what's ahead. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to share your thoughts or discuss this topic further, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Remember, with the right perceptions, we can navigate all emotions in a healthier way. See you in the next video. Take care of yourselves.